Boink. Oh, we're being recorded now. Did you guys get the like voice thing too?
Mhm.
That was a
Yeah,
lot in my
yeah.
headphones.
Okay,
All right.
so I'm Sydney. I guess we're introducing ourselves. Okay, so my why is to be an effective leader for young children to look up to. So, explain it?
Yeah.
Well, how do you want to be effective?
So, I would be going into a servant leadership, which is can look like in a special education classroom specifically by using active listening skills to listen to every student's needs and focusing on the development of every single student's skills. And I will also strive to build community in the classroom and create a positive learning environment for students to feel motivated and self-determined.
Why is it important for your students to be self-motivated and determined?
Because you always want children to want the best for themselves. So being that advocate for them and, pushing them to become better, I think is a quality that a good leader should have. Anyone else?
I think that was good. I feel
Okay.
like I believe you.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm Grace, and my why is I want to be like a life skills special ed teacher. I feel like there isn't enough in the workforce right now, and I feel like it's critical to my success because I know like specifically what I want to do and what I want to go into.
Why do you want to go into that?
Just because I am really passionate about it and I have a lot of experience with it. Because my mom does, but life school special ed, and then also I don't think there's enough that specialize in that in particular. And I think it's really important things that are going to be used every day by the students.
Can you like explain life skills a little bit?
So it's basically like mostly for upper grades is what I want to do. And it's like the skills of like going grocery shopping, like washing your clothes, folding your clothes, cooking, cleaning, just like stuff like that.
Why do you think that's important for students to learn?
Because they're going to use those skills every day. So I feel like it's really helpful.
Ah. Nice. All right, should I go?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm Caroline. My why is my intrinsic desire since like I was little. I don't know why, but I've always been interested to learn more about behaviors manifested specifically when people feel misunderstood, specifically like for the nonverbal community. Um, and so I think a lot of people live with this assumption that communication has to be verbal and that you can't like communicate nonverbally. So I want to advocate for those whose voices aren't heard by people with that perspective. And then this why is inspired by a person I know and care deeply about. So I know I'll always like feel this way because I always have.
How would you like develop your classroom community to be more inclusive of those who don't have like verbal communication?
I so first of all, there's so much technology, and then also like I am in the process of learning ASL and I want to teach like at least like the basics. I want to work specifically in an autistic support classroom. So sometimes like for the younger ages, like they're not fluent yet because they're being like introduced this. It takes a long time to become fluent in a language. But I would definitely like try to give them a lot of tools and coping skills that they can work, and then also the visual boards to point to and things like that.
How would you like overcome some of the challenges with nonverbal students in your classroom, like on a day-to-day basis?
You need to find challenges. Sorry.
Yeah. I should have done that. Hold on.
Do you
Kind
mean
of
like
just like
behaviors?
not being able to like communicate with them just as like a kind of a general education classroom would. Like, how would you
Um,
overcome those challenges of communication?
Honestly, so the reason I chose to go into special ed, or at least like I knew I wanted to work with this community of people specifically, was I worked at a camp with a program for adults with disabilities, and I was eating dinner with 5 dudes, and like we were just eating, we were talking about like their day and like what they enjoyed, what they were looking forward to for the next day. Like every time they wanted like more juice or more food or needed me to cut their food for them, or like they were annoyed at something that happened and we had to talk about it. Like I was there for each thing. And I didn't realize until like the entire hour after we had just eaten dinner that all 5 of them were nonverbal. And it didn't even occur to me that they were nonverbal. And like I was close to them, but I've just always had that skill set. I don't really know how to explain it, but that's why I was saying like it's intrinsic, like the challenge, like the language barrier, almost like I don't really feel it that often. And I think that's one of the reasons why I would do it. And then all of the challenges like would probably be for me at least like the behaviors when they felt misunderstood. And like I want to be a BCBA someday. Like I love behaviors and like understanding the function of them. So it would always be something that like I would be working toward understanding more and helping them through.
All right, I guess I'll go. So I'm Clariana, and my why is like I want to be like the inspiration I have growing up. Like so many teachers, like I was like I want to be them when I grow up. Also, like I had like an IEP, so I was like in resource room. So I really like I've been leaning more towards resource room because I want to be like the resource for those students, like and give back for like what I got when I was a student and be there to like help students.
What were some of the qualities that the teachers you looked up to had? Like, what were like some of the specific things that you're like, I want to be like that?
Where like they were like really patient with me and like they understood, and I feel like as me as the teacher, like I'll understand and like be able to connect and be like I understand like why you're taking a while because it's like hard to like process things, so like I could um like I could be like patient with them and have like patience.
Were there any other like specific qualities besides patience that like really stuck out to you, or was like that one like the biggest things for you growing up?
That was like one of the big things, and like I didn't feel like because like when you're in the main classroom you're rushed and you're like, oh, like I'm not good like the other students because like they do it so fast and you're like I'm so lost. Where like those teachers like take the time and like really like make sure you understand before like they moved on.
What's something that you think teachers who don't teach in a resource room could do to make it a little easier for students that might not have that opportunity to go to one?
um maybe like I don't know because like obviously every student's on a different level, and like you can't like be like slower in the main classroom, but um I don't really know.
Do you think like quick checks like have like when like I know some of our professors now will do like that. Is everyone like cool? Do we have any questions? Like, do you think those kind of pauses would be really helpful?
Yes, that would be good. And, like check-ins, like even if they can't like take time like during class, maybe like after class or before class, they can check in on certain students that they know like are struggling and always like offer like extra help.
I feel like it's hard to argue with personal experience.
Do you think that at a younger age, being pulled into a resource room can create like embarrassment for a student? Like, because I remember personally, like, I always wanted to go to the, like, in third grade, I had a teacher who had like a resource room for people in my class, and I was so jealous of them because I was like, I want to go do what they're doing because they like made honey and like connected it to like, do you think there's any type of embarrassment that can happen from that? Or do you think it's more like kind of how I felt where it's like, no, like I want to do that?
To me, like personally, like I feel like when you first started getting pulled out, like kids were like wondering where you were going and they were like, oh, like why did I get to leave the classroom? Like, and it was like kind of nice because like you changed your scenery and like I kind of liked that. But at the same time, then I also like felt like I was missing out in the main classroom, but realized like as I got older that it was beneficial for me because like I wouldn't be as successful as I am today if I didn't have those resources. But then as like the kids got older, they would be like, oh, like where are you going? Like it's like, oh, you have to go to speech. And it was like, I don't know, I felt embarrassed, but like I never saw it from like the other students' point of view, where like they were probably jealous of me. Or like then you'd come back and I would be like, oh, I got a sticker because I was at speech. Like, so like I guess
I always wanted those stickers and I never got them.
so like I really guess it depends because like my point of view, like I felt embarrassed because like I had to leave, but like
hmm
the other
But was
students
that
could have
like
been
at an older age? I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions about this topic.
no,
Was
you're good.
this more like at an older age where you felt the embarrassment, or is it more like middle school, high school age, or like elementary school was like cool still?
Like I feel like it was more like third, fourth grade, like, because like in middle school, it was like you changed schedules. So, like, either your students would go, like, you had different classes. So it wasn't like you were getting pulled out. It was just like during a different period, you went to a different class. And like, I always like didn't have English class with my friends. And so, like, sometimes I'd feel left out because it was like, oh, like, I can't be in their class. And I'd have to be like in a smaller class that was like 5 people. But
So, as a teacher of a resource room, how would you help your students combat that feeling of like being left out or the embarrassment?
I'd probably like tell them like, oh, this is for like beneficial for you and I can like connect and relate to like how like maybe they're feeling embarrassed like how I did and like tell them that like it's really like beneficial for you for the long run.
Yeah, sorry, I asked so many questions for that. That was so my bad.
Look, that
Um,
was good though.
is it my turn? I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, no. Okay. Hi, I'm Evelyn. Part of my why is that I have always been drawn to kind of helping out people and like I feel like I was one of those kids that was deemed like the teacher's pet and was like always like, "Hey Evelyn, could you go help this student with like that?" and kind of like being like that like extra buddy that could help someone with an understanding because it took me a while to understand things, but once I understood it, I had a really good way of being able to explain it to help others. And then I also want to be able to help people grow into their full potential. So, like, if they're struggling in one area, like, how can I support them to get the most out of like what they're working at put in to get the most out of it? But also, I have always, like, more recently noticed that I want to become an emotional support classroom, like, work with students who have emotional disturbances. I just think it's a very interesting area. And I think that when you're able to kind of help regulate how you feel, you're able to better put out what you want to get. And like you can help kids get to their full potential when they're not trying to manage their internals by themselves. So I think that's a really important thing, especially like with younger students when like they have that toolkit of how they feel and how to manage those feelings that they're able to express on like be able to work better and be able to be more social and like people aren't going to be like why are they so upset right now kind of thing and rather try to be able to help those kids out.
So you mentioned a toolkit. First of all, it's really cool, but you mentioned a toolkit. So what exactly would you use as a toolkit and how would it benefit students with ED?
Yeah. So I know from my past field experience, I was in a middle school, I was in a seventh grade autism support classroom, and one of the students was working on anger management. Like, so there was like a literal book lit that was like managing my anger. And it was like a like literal like I don't want to say picture book, but like that's what it reminded me of, like being able to like color out and like for like younger kids being able to do that, like making a toolkit, which is like quite literally like the different smiley face charts and like having a face and maybe being able to put a color with the face and how they feel. And like, but like trying to like, all right, I feel upset because, and trying to like verbalize the process as like part of their toolkit. So it's like, I'm upset because, and trying to name why they're upset, because when you're able to find out what's causing their like emotion, I'm going to say their emotions, then you're able to kind of process that and be able to counteract what's going on so that you're able to like get past it, because like if I'm upset, I go, huh, that was really upset. I don't want to do that anymore, and I find something else to do. But someone who is not able to regulate their emotions like that is going to have a much harder time just letting things go. So I think being able to like with the like they have like literal books now of like how to go through emotions, like managing anxiety and depression and anger and sadness for little kids. And I think being able to simply have a toolkit of them learning how they feel and putting words to it, even if they're like, I feel yuck today, like just like even sounds, like to be able to help them label so that we're able to make more of like the process of handling it rather than like ignoring it, if that makes sense.
Why is it? I think you already touched on this, but I just want to make sure it's clear. Like,
Yeah.
why exactly is it important to you that because I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily go into emotional disturbance. I think that's one where there's a high need for teachers right now. So like, sorry, I'm processing my question.
No, you're good.
But like, and I also lost my question. So sorry. Oh, like, why do you think that that's like an important hurdle to get over? Like, why is that something that like you are passionate about? Like, it's like clear like why it's important for like students, but like why is it something that you're passionate about?
I think because more recently in my life, mental health has hit my family pretty hard. Like my dad's been dealing with anxiety and depression within the past 2 years. It's become very prevalent. And before he was very much like the, oh, that could never be me, that's weakness. And now him having anxiety and depression, he's managing it and working with it, and it's completely shift of view of those who have deal with mental health. So in I think sort of that aspect with being able to see something the way it was, experiencing it and then changing it, I think is a big deal. So with emotional disturbance, I think that it's really important for people to be able to see this kid's having an emotional outburst because they don't understand what's going on rather than they're just a bad kid. Because being told you're bad is like, I don't have any remembrances personally of that happening, but I've seen it so many times in the classroom where there's kids that need help with quite literally regulating how they feel or being given tools, like maybe they just need a fidget that'll help calm them down internally that they'll be able to get back to work, or they need a 5 minute break, or they just need some guidance to be able to bring back down how they feel. Because like I feel like everyone can get anxious, but those who are not able to just like regroup themselves, it's really hard to be able to focus, to be able to get their schoolwork done. And I don't think that they're able to reach their full potential when inside so dysregulated, they don't know how to act. So they just like freeze up or they act out. And I don't think that's not who they are. That's how they're responding, if that makes sense. So I don't think it's fair that students get labeled the way that they can get labeled. Sorry, the pop-up for the 10 minutes just came up. I don't want to update to Zoom Pro. Sorry, just got fully sidetracked. I got the pop-up for Zoom Pro and I don't want to pay like $160. But I don't think it's fair that students get labeled with these negative terms just because they don't understand what's going on with their bodies. And so I think that especially in younger ages, like kids are like, oh, they're just being little kids. Not necessarily. Which sometimes that's just the case and the kids work it out on their own, but like at home, their parents may not let them cry. Like there's instances that people are not allowed to feel their emotions the way that they're meant to feel. And if they do that, they get all bottled up and they don't know how to process. So whenever they get to this, like they're upset, they won't be able to cry. And like sometimes you just need a good cry it out to like it'll pass over. Once you're done crying, you take a deep breath, you regroup, and you can try again. But if you don't go through the process of completing the emotion, you get stuck on that, and that's all you can focus on. If I think that answered your question. Okay, cool.
Honestly, I was gonna ask you like if you feel prepared to take on that role after graduation, but you honestly sound incredibly prepared. So good for you.
Thank you. I think I might be. Um, I'm kind of really hoping that more find a job that's like specifically emotional support. I feel like I can find like it's in every classroom. Like I'm not saying like there's only kids like are in a classroom, but a couple semesters back I was in an emotional support in 10th grade, and I like my professor was like, get ready to see thrown chairs, and I was like, what? And they were the most peaceful group of 5 kids I've literally ever experienced in my life. And I was like, okay. So I think it also goes to show that because people get labeled with an emotional disturbance, people have this image of how they're going to be. So I think, and also that's part of my whys, whatever their label is, does not have the stereotype reaction of what they actually have. So like people be like emotional disturbance, automatically think aggressive behaviors, but that's not necessarily like that doesn't always make it true. And I kind of want to help change this view of seeing emotional disturbance and then just okay, cool. Like they're still a student, they're still whoever they are. It's just an add-on rather than a drawback. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I just talked for a really long time.
No, that was really good. This is a good answer.
Thank you. All right.